Batman is like James Bond. He's had his ups and downs, he's had a few facelifts and odd costumes, as well as the weird awkward joke here and there that probably shouldn't have been there to begin with, but we still love him despite all of that. In 2022 we are getting a new live action feature film iteration of the character portrayed by Robert Pattinson. I say 2022, as of recording in October 2020, that's the current release date. Fingers crossed that it doesn't get delayed anymore. But who knows, this is 2020 like I said, it's been full of weird, awkward, odd curveballs here and there, so anything could happen at this point. Well, now's the time to go through every feature-length, theatrically released Batman movie released so far, going from worst to best, ranked. If Batman really is forever, I certainly don't want this one. Batman Forever is a disaster, quite frankly. Joel Schumacher took over from Tim Burton in directing these Batman movies, and he tries to carry over the gothic tone and look somewhat, while also adding in more campy comedy and odd, awkward, humorous moments, which are more akin to the Adam West universe of films and TV shows. The result is a film that is, quite frankly, a tonal mess. It doesn't know if it wants to be dark and serious, it doesn't know if it wants to be moody and broody, it doesn't know if it wants to be campy, cheesy and comedic, and it all mashes together and nothing ever really works.
You know, it's always risky introducing a tamed animal into the wild. They may have trouble adapting to their new environment.
To top it all off, you've got two way over the top performances from Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. These are two highly respected, well regarded actors giving us two over the top, terrible performances. It's also very clear that everyone involved in this movie had no idea who these characters were supposed to be, beyond the actual appearance of these characters. In the film, the characters come across as weird and zany and crazy when that's not exactly how they're supposed to be in the comic books, at least. Now, it's fine to do a different depiction of them, but the problem is this version wants to be all comedic and fun and energetic, and it just doesn't work. Instead, it comes across as annoying and frustrating, and quite frankly, I hate these performances from these two actors, despite the fact that I really like these actors. And as if anything else couldn't go wrong with this movie, to top it all off, it's all just a little bit boring. At least Val Kilmer is okay as the titular Batman. Oh, wait, no, he isn't. He's a little too dry and a little too emotionless. He's also got a bit of a resemblance to Clark Kent for some reason in this iteration of the character. And it's very clear that Val Kilmer doesn't realise that Batman and Bruce Wayne are supposed to have completely different personalities. Talk about trying to hide your secret identity. Unlike the next film on this ranking, Batman Forever is so bad that it's just bad. The next one is so bad that it actually becomes good and enjoyable. So hear me out just for a second. At this point you're probably wondering, how is Batman and Robin, one of the worst films ever made, higher on this ranking than Batman Forever? Well, despite having every single flaw that featured in Batman Forever, at least Batman and Robin tries to be fun and energetic and entertaining. And in that regard it kind of nails what it's going for. At this point, director Joel Schumacher has completely abandoned Tim Burton's Gothic era of filmmaking in favour of bright neon lights and campy, cheesy humour. This is basically the Adam West TV show with a new cast, a new look, and a way bigger budget. You could also say it's a cartoon brought to life, which it turns out is exactly what Joel Schumacher wanted to make, and in that regard, he's nailed it. George Clooney in this movie is playing George Clooney, who's forgotten that he's actually meant to be playing Batman. I don't think he's a good Batman, but I think he is a somewhat interesting Bruce Wayne. Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing a corny, cheesy version of Mr. Freeze with loads of one-liners and really bad puns. In the process, he's trying to make the character pretty cool. Yeah, I had to do that one, didn't I? And the end result is something that's, you know what, kind of funny.
The Iceman cometh. I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy. In this universe, there's only one absolute. Everything freezes. You are not sending me to the cooler. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! Can you feel it coming? The icy cold of space. Ah, after you're frozen, your icy tomb will plummet back to Gotham. Breathe well. Stay cool, bird boy. Can you be cold, Batman? You have 11 minutes to thaw the bird.
Breezy. I'm feeling hot.
I find that unlikely.
Uma Thurman is playing Poison Ivy, although at times she can't figure out what accent she wants to use, and it's clear that the writer and director have no idea how her powers actually work. But it's not a terrible performance. Then you got Robin, who is yet again a pain in the backside, but you know what? I could be here all day listing off all the problems of this movie. The end result is, unlike Batman Forever, this film is enjoyable and fun to watch, even if it is terrible. It's time to give this one the cold shoulder though and move on to the next film.
All it takes is one bad day.
I debated about putting this one in the ranking because it only sort of kind of got a theatrical release. So consider this one here on a technicality. If you really want to know the details about it, go look up its history. I'm sure you'll be able to find out why it only sort of got a theatrical release and why it did end up on this ranking. Anyway, Batman the Killing Joke adapts the iconic classic comic book into animation form with the very best version of the Joker there ever has been, Mark Hamill.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me of a joke. See, there were two guys locked in a lunatic asylum. And one night they decided they didn't like that anymore. They decided to escape. So they made it up to the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see rooftops stretching across town, stretching to freedom. Now, the first guy, he jumps right across, no problem. But his friend, oh, no way. He's afraid of falling. So the first guy, he has an idea. He says, hey, I got this flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings, and you can walk across the beam and join me. But the second guy says, what do you think I am, crazy? You just turn it off when I'm halfway across. Oh, excuse me.
Sadly, that's not all the film does. It adds an unwanted, overly long prologue that doesn't really fit into things, and it has some really questionable depictions of certain characters and their relationships. For example, Batman and Batgirl are in love? That's really inappropriate, isn't it? Considering 1, the age difference, 2, their working relationship, and many other things going on. Bottom line, that did not need to be in this film whatsoever. Then the film goes into exploring the origins of the Joker, which is a really big risk in my book, and it does so in a pretty meh way. Add on the fact that the animation, like all of the DC animated movies, isn't exactly top tier animation quality. It's nothing akin to like Pixar or Disney's animation. It's really animation on a budget, animation that kind of belongs on a TV screen rather than a theatre screen. But like I said, Mark Hamill is brilliant. Holy smokes, it's time for a flashback with Batman the movie, the spin-off continuation of the Adam West 60s campy, cheesy, comedic Batman TV show. So the film is iconic, it's got that going for it, but it's also very clearly a product of its time period. It was made in the midst of the swinging 60s with bright colours, hippie-ish vibes, really strong aesthetics and style. cheesy comedy and more. Bottom line, it's the 60s enveloped into a film featuring Batman characters.
And here are the dastardly villains. The Catwoman.
Oh, you're going to see the perfect crime when I get Batman in my claws.
The Joker. Have you heard this one? It'll kill you, Batman. The Penguin.
There are two eggs this wily bird is going to scramble. Batman and Robin.
The Riddler.
Question. Who's going to make the feathers fly and knock Batman and Robin out of the sky?
It's fun, it's funny, but it is limited by budget and technology of the time. It's also pretty poorly paced, with some repetition here and there, the odd joke that probably doesn't hold up that well, assuming it ever did to begin with. It's poorly paced with repetitive scenes that don't need to be there all the time, and of course the occasional joke that doesn't hold up, assuming it ever did to begin with. Tim Burton's second outing in Batman is a weird one. Where has Batman been? Turns out he's been nowhere, so the title's a lie. The big selling point of this film is probably the Penguin, but for some reason this version of the Penguin is a disfigured, half-human, half-penguin thing. And for some reason they never explain why that is. Why does he have penguin features? I don't know. He doesn't normally have that sort of stuff going on in the comic books. He's normally just a gangster, a normal human being, with like a big nose sometimes.
Admiring your handiwork?
Touring the riot scene. Gravely assessing the devastation. Upstanding mayor stuff.
You're not the mayor.
Things change.
What do you want?
Ah, the direct approach. I admire that in a man with a mask. You don't really think you'll win, do you?
Things change.
Then there's an overly sexual, crazy depiction of Catwoman. It's actually kind of cool and it fits into this universe, but in making her overly sexual and crazy, you're kind of robbing Selina Kyle of the comic books of her brains and her smarts and her actual abilities to do stuff. It's also, in my opinion, less interesting than the usual depiction of Catwoman, who's neither good nor bad and is sometimes a love interest to Batman. Also, why does the film seem to take place in one city square? This is supposed to be Gotham City, and yet it looks really, really small in this film. The action, the sets, the costumes, and Michael Keaton's performance are all a little bit better this time around than what they were the first time. Overall, the film's not bad, but there are some questionable creative decisions in there which hamper it down a little bit. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, a spin-off of one of the greatest animated shows ever made, Batman, the animated series. I mean, what else could it be a spin-off of? You have the iconic voice of Kevin Conroy, arguably the best version of Batman there's ever been. You also have the iconic voice of Mark Hamill. I've already said he's the best version of the Joker there's ever been. Although at this point in his career as the Joker, he's still clearly trying to figure things out, and his inclusion in this film is a little unnecessary.
Hello? Anybody home? Listen, Boopsy, even though you never call and never write, I still got a soft spot for you. So I'm sending you a fun gift, airmail. And there's no use jumping out the window this time. toots. The plane of the future is going to make you history. Hello, operator. I believe my party's been disconnected.
The film is full of gorgeous art design and lots of cool creative ideas, but the animation is a little on the dated side now because it was in the 90s. For example, there are numerous shots in this film that are simply out of focus, which doesn't make sense considering they are hand drawn. Why would you draw a shot that's out of focus? It's weird. But overall, the art design is gorgeous, when you can see it. The story is a pretty by-the-books revenge tale. Nothing really mind-blowing about it. There's a really cool, interesting mystery surrounding it. The problem is that the only suspect is also the only new character introduced in this film. So it's kind of predictable. You also have explorations into Batman and Joker's origins, both of which are kind of interesting in a way. But again, there's nothing really outstanding, nothing really new or original. So it's a cool, interesting, fun film at times with lots of atmosphere, but not much else. Michael Keaton's first foray as the iconic Batman was in a film made in and for the 1980s. I mean, one look at the screen at any point in this movie and you can just tell it's an 80s movie. Michael Keaton himself is an unusual Batman. It's almost as if he and Tim Burton just didn't know what to do with the character. Hell, he's arguably not even the main character of this film. He shows very little emotion in the movie, which is fine, but he also shows very little interest in anything else. It really makes it hard to root for him. To top it off, he's an absolute moron. We repeatedly see him raise his arms and wings in the air as if to scare people and to intimidate people, but every single time it just looks goofy. And why does he do it more than once? Why does he keep doing it? He falls from heights, he stumbles around, and he gets shot multiple times. And to top it all off, he can't even move his head. In fairness, that's a problem with the costume rather than with Michael Keaton. And this isn't even the Batman origin story, so there aren't any excuses. You can't say that he's inexperienced here. He's just stumbling around, making a fool of himself. Then there's Jack Nicholson. A great performance, no doubt about that. But he isn't really the Joker. He's an unhinged, manic gangster with some weird plastic surgery. And I said unhinged. Yes, unhinged is the key word. He's not crazy. He's choosing to be outlandish. He's choosing to be menacing. He's choosing to go out and do weird, bizarre stuff as a form of intimidation. Maybe I've just interpreted it wrong, but that's always how I've seen it. Jack Nicholson's Joker is not crazy. It's all just an act, which is not what the Joker's supposed to be, in my books. Again, a great performance regardless of all that. Just not the iconic Joker that I want. The film has tons of style, lots of really fun, entertaining moments, but it was also made by people who clearly just didn't have a grasp of the characters or the stories of the original comic books.
Wow, that was fun. Really hope nobody was recording that. Let me see. Oh, this thing is on. This thing is recording.
Without a doubt, the funniest Batman movie ever made is the Lego Batman movie. And it's not only funny, it tells a great, heartfelt story about Batman and his relationship to other individuals. It touches upon Batman in a way that a lot of other Batman movies never have. Who would have thought that a Lego animated Batman movie would also be one of the most psychologically most interesting Batman movies ever made? I mean, Bruce Wayne finally realizing the significance of the Bat family in his life is really quite a tearjerker. The animation is gorgeous, the voice acting is brilliant, the references are great, and the action is really fun too. Don't be put off by the fact that it's Lego, don't be put off by its animation. This is legitimately a great Batman movie. After The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan had a really big task ahead of him. Not only was The Dark Knight one of the greatest movies ever made, but it also had one of the best on-screen performances ever. How do you top that?
Well, he made the bad guy talk a little bit like this.
Yes, he put Tom Hardy in a mask, called him Bane, and asked him to talk weird. I have to admit something though. I really kind of like the voice and performance of Tom Hardy.
Why didn't you just kill me? Your punishment must be more severe.
The end result is a really divisive Batman movie, and I get it. There isn't as much action here as you would expect from a superhero movie. It's way more dramatic and serious than some of the other superhero movies. And of course, it's following up from two great Batman movies, and this one's not on the same level as them. It's also got some weird plot holes, like how did he get from one country to the other and sneak into a city that was in lockdown? It's weird. There are some really questionable decisions here and there, but ultimately, a really well-made, good film, despite some of these little flaws. Is Joker a Batman movie? Well, kind of. Full spoilers. It retells Batman's origin story. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it in this ranking. Because Bruce Wayne's in the movie, he plays a significant part in the movie, and that's the end result, his origin story. The main focus though is a psychological character focus on the iconic bad guy, the Joker. This isn't the depiction of the Joker we all know though. This one's different. He's twisted, he's delusional, he's troubled, he needs help. The film has a lot that it wants to say, and when you actually dive into what it's trying to say, it can be a little on the controversial side depending on your views and beliefs. The film explores topics surrounding politics, society, healthcare, the police, and more. It's also controversial because of its use of a Gary Glitter song. If you don't know why that's an issue, look it up. In certain ways, this film is a masterpiece. In other ways, it leaves you scratching your head thinking you might have just wasted your time. One thing is for certain though, it leaves you thinking and it incites some sort of emotional response. And in that regard, it's a great movie. It's also got brilliant acting, gorgeous cinematography, a great soundtrack and score, it's really well directed. Yes, it's a little on the slow side in certain regards, but that's actually deliberate and it works really well in the end. Overall, a great film. Batman's parents were murdered. Spoilers. We already knew that though. What Batman Begins done is it relaunched this film franchise, which at this point was kind of dead thanks to the George Clooney, Joel Schumacher film, and it grounded it in reality and gritted things up a bit. Because of its approach and because of how successful it was, it actually influenced a whole new wave of grounded reboots in the years to come, including films like James Bond, video games like Tomb Raider, so on and so forth. There are so many things that have looked at Batman Begins as inspiration, and there's a reason for that. It's not so much a superhero film as it is a crime thriller with emotional elements and deep exploration of characters, and it's better because of that. The same could be said of its sequel, which we'll get to soon. Christian Bale is without a doubt the best live-action depiction of the Caped Crusader so far. One of the reasons for this is because he truly, clearly separates the characters of Bruce Wayne and Batman. Batman is who he is, while Bruce Wayne is the character he's pretending to be. Cillian Murphy's also there playing Scarecrow, inducing him with some creepy horror elements. Then there's the Tumbler. For the first time in live action form, the Batmobile not only looked cool, it actually could physically do most of the things that you see it do in the film. The film is full of flashbacks though and jumping from one time to another, so there are some slight pacing issues, arguably. But as a Batman origin story, it's pretty damn near perfect. Let's face it, we all knew this was going to be number one. Not only is this by far the best Batman movie ever made, it's one of, if not the best superhero movie ever made. And, in many people's eyes, simply the very best film ever made. That's a real boon and achievement. Like, there's no exaggeration here, I'm gonna say it again, just to highlight this. This is one of the best films ever made. It ups the ante from Batman Begins and it further explores the psyche of Bruce Wayne. There's some great action which is actually better this time around than Batman Begins because of a better budget and more time dedicated to it. There's stronger dialogue, stronger themes, and it's also a gorgeous movie to watch. Oh, this one also has the Joker in it, played by the late great Heath Ledger. And quite frankly, this is one of the finest performances ever put onto screen.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
Give me one reason why I shouldn't have my boy here pull your head off.
How about a magic trick? I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. Ta-da! It's gone.
At this point you're probably wondering, well, Grant, where's Batman v Superman? Where's Justice League? Where's Suicide Squad? Well, I hate to spoil it for you, but they aren't Batman movies. Justice League is a Justice League movie, so it doesn't count. In Suicide Squad he only has a cameo, so that doesn't count. And Batman v Superman, remember, is a sequel to Man of Steel, a Superman movie. In many ways, Batman's the villain in Batman v Superman, so for those reasons, it doesn't count. It's also part of the larger DCEU rather than a standalone Batman movie. However, just to cheer some of you up who are no doubt complaining about not having these films included, if I were to have these in these rankings, all three of these films, Suicide Squad at the bottom, followed by Justice League, Batman v Superman, they would be above Batman and Robin. So there you go, Batman ranked. Probably a predictable result, probably surprising in certain ways as well. If you've liked this ranking and you want to see more rankings like this, or you just want to see more content from me, subscribe to my channel, that's the best place to be, and of course I really appreciate any support you want to give me. You can also go over to Twitter and Instagram and follow me at @the_Grant Burton to get all my thoughts and opinions up to date as I get them if I can be bothered to post them. Until next time though, thanks for watching.